Located in Central America, just under the U.S. border, Mexico is a large country with the 10th largest population of 132.3 million people. This makes it home to the largest Spanish-speaking population on Earth as well. Mexico has a deep history of struggle, from gaining independence to the Spanish conquest and demolishing slavery, and also participating in several wars, including one with the United States of America. Mexico has overcome many obstacles that has shaped it into the independent country to what we know today. When talking about the times of slavery, many think back to the white settlers capturing Africans and bringing them back to the Americas via the Atlantic slave route. But what is less acknowledged in the history books is the history of enslavement of the indigenous people in the Americas, as well as the Africans. This tragic occurrence was especially present in what is today modern-day Mexico. Before the Spanish conquest in the Americas, the land of modern-day Mexico was ruled for centuries by various indigenous populations. The two largest empires were the Mayan, who ruled the land of the Yucatan Peninsula in the east, and the Aztec Empire, which ruled over the land and other smaller empires in the central part of the country, towards the west. However, when the Spanish explorer, known by the name of Hernan Cortés, and his armed men reached Mexican soil, they eventually invaded the Aztec capital, Tenochtitlan, in 1519. At the time, this land was ruled by King Moctezuma II. Later, with aligning themselves with other smaller empires who were controlled under Aztec rule, such as the Tarascan and the Tlaxcala, in 1521, the Spanish had complete control over the region. While the defeated indigenous people and Aztecs were now victimized to very low living standards, the Catholic Pope at the time, Alexander VI, forbade the Spanish to enslave these people and instead ordered the conquistadors to convert them to Catholicism. However, the Pope also said that to those who did not accept to fully convert to Christianity and Catholicism, or reverted to their old religion, should be punished and could be subject to enslavement. In addition to the exploitation of the natives, the Spaniards also brought Africans to Mexico to be slaves as well. From 1580 to 1640, the largest African population in the Americas was in Mexico, with over 250,000 enslaved people. Slaves in Mexico mostly worked in silver mines, sugar plantations, or private homes. There were many slave rebellions across the country, the largest group of rebels being the Maroons. These Maroons lived in the region of Veracruz, and at least 10% of the slaves in the area fled to the highlands. Here, they would form independent settlements called palenques. The most famous of these Maroons was a man by the name of Gaspar Yanga, who led one of these palenques. He was most well known for successfully resisting the Spanish attack on his palenque in 1609. He then led one of Mexico's first slave revolts, and later, after years of battles and stalemate with the Spanish agreed to grant Yanga the right to rule one of the first free black settlements in the Americas. Later, they abolished slavery entirely in 1829. To this day, Maroon leader Yanga remains a symbol of black resistance in Mexico, and the settlement where he once ruled is now a town in Veracruz called Yanga. There is no denying that oppression is very prevalent in the history of Mexico, but slavery was not the only form of oppression Mexico had to face. Poverty, to this day, is a very serious issue in Mexico, especially in the region of Oaxaca. Out of the 53.3 million people living in poverty, 1.5 million people are described as living in extreme poverty. This results from the lack of government programs and protection, along with the region being run by the cartel. Along with already the presence of rampant poverty, women and girls suffer from gender inequality, especially in indigenous communities. These inequalities reach into every aspect of life, from education to work opportunities, ownership of land, and even medical care. Most women only go to school for 6 years, and most are married by the age of 15. In the past 10 years, nearly 800 women died during pregnancy or childbirth. This is due to the lack of medical facilities, and it is also made worse by the fact that men, who which of most are also educated, do not like the idea of their wives seeing a male doctor. This has resulted in many women going untreated and unseen. Today, with so much tension and news about the U.S. and Mexican border, it's easy to overlook the deep and impactful history between these two neighbors. While now the emphasis is on keeping people from crossing the border from Mexico into the United States, there was a time when adventuresome or desperate individuals in the U.S. traveled to Mexico to pledge allegiance to Mexico and convert to Catholicism, which at the time, Catholicism was the state religion of Mexico. Battles between Mexico and the newly declared Republic of Texas exacerbated Mexico's relations with the United States because the United States openly supported Texas. And in 1845, Texas formally became part of the United States. This only added to the tensions between the U.S. and Mexico. Both of these U.S. interventions into Mexico policy and territory helped what would later be called the Mexican-American War. This war lasted until 1848. The United States president at the time, James K. Polk, was convinced that the United States had not a right, but a quote-unquote destiny to travel across westward out to the Pacific Ocean. The battle began when the United States moved troops west into an area that had been previously recognized as part of Mexico, Coahuila. This is located between the Rio Grande and the Nueces River. President Polk then sent a four-pronged attack into the Mexican heartland. This attack took troops into the states of California and New Mexico, but at the time, this was considered Mexican land. At the same time, Zachary Taylor crossed the Rio Grande, and Winfield Scott marched right into the capital of Mexico City, formerly known as Tenochtitlan. The war ended with the signing of the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, but it was a lopsided agreement, and the United States took Texas, California, New Mexico in exchange for a mere payment of $15 million. Now, in conclusion, Mexico is a richly cultured country, but along with the past of slavery, the past of wars, extreme poverty to this day, many invasions, it definitely shares its own set of problems. But then again, this is just like any country. Now, although Mexico's history is filled with obstacles and hardships, if anything, it builds character and it only fuels to what we know today as Mexico.